Okay, 7th grade, so things are going to look a little bit different today. We're just looking at the actual PDF on the computer together, just because I have a couple things I need to fix with my whiteboard and lighting and all that kind of stuff that I'm still trying to figure out, but this will work for us today. But yeah, so today we're on page 43. I don't know how far we're going to get today. I'm just going to see kind of what feels right, but obviously it'll be in the dojo post how many pages you have to do, so you'll know already. But today we're going to be looking at citing evidence to make inferences. We talked a lot about citing evidence in the race strategy, which is, I'm going to pop it right up here. So I went ahead and popped the race strategy right up here, just so you guys have a little refresher. So we're basically going to be looking at the C and also the E, because whenever you cite evidence, you're also looking at the explaining of that evidence. But more specifically, we're looking at citing evidence to make inferences, which an inference is something that you can assume about the text or guess about the text that you might not necessarily know for certain. I apologize in advance for all the ums and the so's that I'm saying. For some reason, I'm just on one tonight with all that kind of stuff. But it says, when you analyze something, you examine its parts to see how they work together. For example, you might analyze how the parts of a bicycle work to help a person move forward. Reading involves analyzing too. When you analyze a text, you sometimes look at what the text says explicitly or directly. We've talked a lot about this explicit and explicit stating and implied stating in class. So when it explicitly says something, it is literally saying what they want you to understand. So for here, it says the crowd clapped and cheered wildly when the home team won is an example of explicit information because you know what happened and why. You don't have to make any assumptions about what's happening. Now, if you said the crowd clapped and cheered wildly as the team walked off the court, you could assume that they were cheering and clapping because they had won. If it didn't say anything about them winning, if it said the crowd clapped and cheered wildly when the home team left the court, you would assume that it was because they won, even though it didn't say that. So again, like jumping into what I just said, other times though, you must make an inference or an assumption to figure out what the text is really saying. An inference is a reasonable guess based on textual evidence and what you already know. So we've kind of already talked about that. We've talked about this before. So it says, find the slowest runner in the picture below. Is he sad about losing, and how can you tell? So the slowest runner here would be which guy? Well, we can tell that he's right here because he's behind everybody else, right? Now, is he sad about losing? No. He says, I love this sport. That's one example of evidence, right? Evidence doesn't always have to do with written works or text or something that we're reading. It can also be something that we're looking at. You can read an image, just like when we were reading Percy Jackson and we watched the Percy Jackson movie back in December. We talked about reading film. Even when you're watching a movie, you are reading the film and what's happening in the film in order to understand the story of what's happening. So the story of what's happening in this picture is that obviously this guy in the back is the slowest, okay? Is he sad? Well, what's the evidence that tells us whether or not he's sad? Well, he says, I love this sport. That doesn't sound very sad, right? If you look, he has a smile on his face, okay? Smile's pretty much the most opposite of sad that you can get. So now we talked a little bit about what we're seeing here. But now it tells us to circle details in the picture that support an inference that the runner isn't sad about losing. So like we just talked about, this, I love this sport. Obviously, that doesn't seem very sad. And then we said he's smiling. That doesn't seem very sad either. So circle details in the picture that support an inference that the runner is sad about losing. We've done that. Then complete the chart below to describe what details support this inference. So if we look down here, it says the expression on the runner's face is it happy or sad? Happy. Or we could say the expression on the runner's face is a joyful smile, right? And I'll move that down here so you guys can better see that. And ignore like where some of my text is different or it's like highlighted and stuff like that. The computer does what it wants. So what does the runner say? The runner says how much they love the sport, right? So the expression on the runner's face is a joyful smile, like we discussed, and the runner says how much they love the sport. The background knowledge that we have, well, obviously we just know that a person who loves a sport also enjoys it, right? That's obvious. That's just something that we already know. So what we can infer is that, or assume, is that the runner is just happy to compete, and competing is more important to him than winning. You're just making assumptions based on evidence from the text or picture in this case. So at the bottom, it says to get the most out of your reading, you must analyze text to understand what they say directly and make inferences about what they say indirectly. So the smile and what the runner was saying are those examples of the more indirect things that we need to make inferences about. When you find evidence to make and support inferences, you'll find you won't get stuck as often trying to figure out what the text is saying, like when a bike is stuck in gear and can't move forward. So this is just going to help us in understanding what text is saying. It's kind of something to aid us in a way with context clues, not exactly in determining what individual words mean, but what the text as a whole is trying to mean. It's almost like the context clues of understanding a whole reading. So now we're going to move on to 44. So we're going to read this together and answer these questions together. So we're at the top of 44. It's called The Flu Game by Maureen McBride. So read the first 3 paragraphs of an article that showcases Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan, the basketball player. So we're just going to read this really quickly. Game 5 of the 1997 basketball playoffs should have been the game that the Chicago Bulls lost. It should, in fact, have marked the Utah Jazz's first NBA championship win. Michael Jordan, the Bulls' star player, had spent the previous 24 hours bedridden and dehydrated with what doctors had diagnosed as the stomach flu. He had lost weight and had missed 2 key days of practice leading up to the game. It was a recipe for disaster. But 3 hours before the start of Game 5, the best player in the history of basketball suited up and appeared on the court. Though Jordan was visibly weak in the first quarter, he had scored 17 points by the second, putting the Bulls ahead at halftime. However, while Jordan spent the third quarter overcome by nausea and fatigue, Utah managed to reclaim the lead. So it says, explore how to answer these questions. What is Michael Jordan's attitude toward competition, and what text evidence supports your idea? And again, it tells us Michael Jordan's attitude is not directly stated. We're needing to figure this out from more indirect things. So, Jordan was diagnosed with the flu before Game 5, okay? That's one textual evidence that they already gave us for why that shows us how Michael Jordan feels about competition. So, we know that Michael Jordan got diagnosed with the flu before Game 5, which Game 5 is this whole game that we're talking about. Now, where is the point where we might see something that would tell us anything about how Michael Jordan feels about competition? Well, this second paragraph, it says, but 3 hours before the start of Game 5, the best player in the history of basketball suited up and appeared on the court. So what that tells us is that, which we're going to put that down here, 3 hours before the game, Jordan got ready to play, right? And then we see some of our background knowledge. So once we get that text evidence, we put that in there. Our background knowledge is that his team depended on him a lot. Playing sports while sick requires determination. So Michael Jordan believes that competition is what? Well, 3 hours before the game, he got ready to play, despite the fact that he was diagnosed with the flu before Game 5. His team depended on him. Playing sports while sick requires determination. So Michael believes that competition is important, first of all, right? Because despite being sick, despite everything else, he shows up to this game. And possibly, he believes it's important and helps build strength. Because he shows up, maybe he thinks it's going to help him to feel a little bit better, and that's why he's showing up despite the fact that he's sick, right? So it's important and helps build strength. So regardless of how he's feeling, all that kind of stuff, he's still going to show up for the competition. So the question asks, what text evidence supports the inference that Michael Jordan is a fierce competitor? With a partner, which is just going to be us, find evidence in the article that supports your answer and write it on the lines below. So we could say, we start by restating, right? So the evidence that supports that Michael is a fierce competitor is, and we've already found the evidence, is the fact that he what? Played directly after getting the stomach flu, right? Is that he went into Game 5 despite the fact that he, let me bring that down one more line, that he was having a terrible stomach flu. The evidence that supports Michael is a fierce competitor is, that's restating. Answering is that he went into Game 5 despite the fact that he had a terrible stomach flu. Now we need to explain how that evidence supports the fact that he's a fierce competitor. So we would say, this shows that he is a fierce competitor because, and then how does that prove he's a fierce competitor? Let me fix this E. Because he was able to play through his illness. So we restated the question, answered the question, and cited evidence all in one because the answer to the question required us to cite evidence. But so we answered and cited all in one and then explained that this shows that he's a fierce competitor because he was able to play through his illness. So that page was pretty easy. Moving on to 45. We're reading the next three paragraphs, sorry. So it says, close reading, which sentence best shows that Jordan is a talented player? Find and underline a sentence on this page showing this. So I'm going to highlight it, but you can underline it or highlight it, whatever works better for you. So we're looking for a sentence that best shows that he's a talented player. So in the third quarter, I felt like I couldn't catch my wind, Jordan said. I was just trying to get myself through it. In the fourth quarter, Jordan scored 18 more points. Then, with only 25 seconds left in the game, he scored a three-point shot, and the Bulls beat the Jazz by only 2 points. At the end of the game, Jordan collapsed into the arms of his teammate Scottie Pippen. I almost played myself into passing out just to win a basketball game, Jordan admitted later. If we had lost, I would have been devastated. So if we're looking for something that shows that he's a powerful or a talented player, does him collapsing into the arms of his teammate show that? No. Him just talking about how he can't catch his breath, does that show that? No. The end doesn't really show anything of that, but I think there's 2 sentences that really work for showing how he's a talented player. So in the fourth quarter, he scored 18 more points, shows he's pretty good player. Then with only 25 seconds left in the game, he scored a 3-point shot, and the Bulls beat the Jazz by only 2 points. So both of those, he's doing something in it that shows he's a powerful player, a good basketball player, all that kind of stuff, because he's scoring 18 points, and then he scores a 3-point shot that wins the game for the entire team. So if we move down here, it says, look for the choice that shows Jordan's talent, not his dedication to luck. So which sentence from the passage best supports the idea that Michael Jordan is a talented basketball player? So we're looking for his talent, like his actual skill, not his dedication or his luck. So again, like we just highlighted 2 sentences that really kind of show his talent and his dedication. But like we kind of talked about before, the key word that we're looking at here is best. Okay, we want it to best support. So we're looking for the best answer. So, which sentence from the passage best supports the idea that Michael Jordan's a talented basketball player? In the third quarter, I felt like I couldn't catch my wind, Jordan said. I was just trying to get myself through it. Well, that just shows his dedication. Doesn't show, so we know A is not it. In the fourth quarter, Jordan scored 18 more points. Well, that's one of our sentences that we underlined, right? So it could possibly be this one. But we will keep reading, just make sure we're finding the best answer. That is the most important thing. So in the fourth quarter, Jordan scored 18 more points. We're leaving that as an option. Then with only 25 seconds left in the game, he scored a 3-point shot, and the Bulls beat the Jazz by only 2 points. Okay, that's the other one that we underlined. We'll come back to that one also because we need to look and compare it to B. But let's check out D first. I almost played myself into passing out just to win a basketball game, Jordan admitted later. Well, that just shows his dedication. Once again, doesn't show his skill or anything like that. So we're looking for something that strictly deals with his talent, not his luck or his dedication. So then it says, then with only 25 seconds left in the game, he scored a 3-point shot and the Bulls beat the Jazz by only 2 points. Obviously, this in some ways shows his skill. But if we're taking out his luck, the fact that there was only 25 seconds left in the game, that's just kind of a matter of circumstance, right? He didn't like purposely wait until there was 25 seconds left and shoot a 3-point shot. So the correct answer that we're looking for is B. Excuse me. Because it's just talking about just his skill, not his luck or anything along those lines. So now we're going to do a short answer. So it says, Michael Jordan is a dedicated basketball player. Find and write down a sentence from the passage that supports this statement. Then explain your answer. So let's come back here to our options within this multiple choice question. So we know B or C isn't talking about dedication because we said that more so talks about his skill and maybe a little bit of his luck. So in the third quarter, I couldn't catch my wind. Well, that's just really talking about him struggling to get through the game, right? Doesn't really talk about him being dedicated to get through the game, other than when he says, I was just trying to get myself through it. Now, I almost played myself into passing out just to win a basketball game, Jordan later admitted. That shows his dedication to the game. So we would say, just like before, we restate in our rate strategy. So a statement from the passage that shows Jordan's dedication is when he said, I almost played myself into passing out just to win a basketball game. And then we'll put quotes, period. Now, again, we've cited the evidence, we've answered the question. Now we need to explain. So this shows Jordan's dedication because, and then let's think about how that proves his dedication. So, is it healthy to be like passing out? No, I don't think so. So maybe Jordan showing his dedication because he's putting his own comfort aside to win the game for the team, right? So this shows Jordan's dedication because he is putting his own comfort aside for the betterment of the team as a whole. So he's looking more for the team as a whole rather than just himself. So we'll just do the bottom part. I'll just talk through the bottom part a little bit. It says, make an inference about why Michael Jordan collapsed into Scottie Pippen's arms. Support your inference with evidence from the text and background knowledge. Let's just take a look up here. So it says, I almost played myself into passing out just to win a game. Right above that. At the end of the game, Jordan collapsed into the arms of his teammate, Scottie Pippen. I almost played myself into passing out just to win a basketball game, Jordan admitted later. If we had lost, I would be devastated. Well, I think we can infer that he was about to pass out because he was so sick, and he was trying to use more strength than he actually had from being sick, right? And some evidence that shows this is when he says, I almost played myself into passing out just to win a game. Or at the beginning when he said, I felt like I couldn't catch my wind, I was trying to get myself through it. It's showing that he is physically struggling through this game, but he's still powering through because if they had lost, he would have been devastated. So all of those things are evidence that supports. So if we move on to 46, I want you guys to go ahead, even though this says guided practice, I think we've done enough guided practice together on these making inferences and all this kind of thing. So I want you guys to go ahead and read 46, then do 47, 48, and 49 and 50, on your own. Because I think you guys could use a little bit of practice on this. If you want to go ahead and get on Zoom tomorrow, we can do page 46 together if anyone wants to do that. Otherwise, I want you guys to be doing pages 46 through 50 in the packet on your own. Because I think that we've gone through that first part together, and that kind of explains what you guys need to be doing for the pages 46 through 50. So you guys need to be looking at making inferences based on textual evidence and using textual evidence to support those inferences. So again, you're doing pages 46 through 50. Just a reminder, you guys need to send me by Friday, probably in the early afternoon. The evening's probably fine too, sending me a picture of your completed packet so that way I can give you credit for that and the participation for this week. That's going to be every week after this week. You guys need to be sending me photos of your packets. So if you guys want, we can work through 46 and 47 together during office hours tomorrow. If not, then I hope I will hear from you guys sometime next week.